I'm delighted to be joined this morning by Dan Milmo, the Deputy Business Editor and the Consumer Affairs Editor of The Guardian.
Morning.
Dan, The Guardian, perhaps more than any other newspaper, stands for something, but what does it stand for? But more importantly, how does that impact the way in which it covers the business and financial markets?
Okay, well, I suppose if we stand for two things, number one, obviously, is good journalism, asking tough questions and holding powerful institutions, companies and people to account, which I think you'd expect any good media and journalism organisation to do. The second one is open journalism, which is perhaps the most exciting part of our future as a journalism organisation, certainly in my position, which is opening what we do to the reader, to the contributor, below the line in comments, in terms of using our community's website to get contributions to stories, in terms of, for instance, our coverage of the 0 Hours issue last year, to more recently the MH370 story where we contacted pilots and cabin crew. So those are two things that we certainly stand for.
Certainly on the open journalism side, that's been given a massive boost by the digital revolution. And how is digital media sort of changing the financial reporting? Particularly, The Guardian has put all its resources behind moving to digital first.
Well, it's fascinating. I mean, one thing that financial journalism does encounter, and certainly did in the old media days, is data, reams of it. We're certainly able to take advantage of that through digital journalism. We have people who are able to handle data in a way that we couldn't 10 years ago, because, for instance, we can use anything from an interactive graphic to a live blog to display data in a way that we couldn't up until very recently. So that's one way that open journalism and the data that it brings with it certainly changes financial journalism in particular.
And I mentioned at the top that you've got two parts to your role. There's the business and consumer. Is that because the two worlds are increasingly colliding, or how is that an important development in the media?
Yes, certainly. In terms of what the business and consumer department does, it does span everything from economics to banking to mortgages, pensions, which is obviously a massive issue in last week's budget, and consumer affairs, which would be everything from retail to the safety of food to, indeed, the horse meat scandal, which was a massive story for us last year. Particularly on the consumer side, the open journalism front has been very helpful to us. We are able to communicate more with consumers, for instance, through this, through below-the-line comments, through Twitter, through Facebook, and it's certainly enhanced our consumer coverage.
So, huge rate of change in your world. Is the communications sector matching the change that's happening in the media? Are PRs living up to the challenges?
Yes, I certainly think so. As I'm speaking to you, Gorkana has an interactive wall with the tweets coming up from today's conference, which will hopefully be an exciting and good debate. The PR world has grown up in tandem with the newspaper world over the past 15 years that I've been a journalist, and the two sort of coexist. There's a symbiosis between them. So I think in terms of how the PR community has grown up and adapted with newspapers and other media organisations, including broadcasters, I think has been impressive and notable. But it does need to continue to adapt, because if we're in danger of being caught out by developments in the digital world, then certainly so will the PR community.
And one of the elements for you as a journalist is to sort of keep in touch with the narrative. What are the most interesting ways in which you think the narrative is being unveiled to you? Well,
for a start, primarily, we don't control that narrative anymore. Neither does the public relations community. Again, referring back to open journalism, readers, consumers, even bankers and lawyers, if they wanted to join in, can lead the debate, can create their own stories if they so desire. So that is certainly one development. It's not a two-pronged world, the media now. It's not PR and newspapers and broadcasters. There are many, many more factors and contributors at play now. So that's definitely one development to note.
Dan, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.